Who's gonna warn them of the things coming on them so God can turn their night today? Somebody's gotta warn them. Somebody's gotta tell them. Would you help me say somebody? Somebody's gotta warn them. Oh, yeah, somebody gotta tell them. Somebody's gotta tell them. So I want to ask you, wherever you are, who's gonna tell them? Who's gonna tell them? Jesus. Who's gonna tell them? There's a better way. Who's gonna warn them of the things coming on them? So God, who's gonna tell them? Say, Jesus loves you. Who's gonna tell them? There's a better way. Who's gonna warn them of the things so God can turn their night? Somebody's gotta want me. Somebody's gotta tell me. Say with me, somebody gotta want me. Somebody gotta tell them. So I need some volunteers to raise your hand, raise your heart, and say, I'm gonna tell them. Jesus loves you. I'm gonna tell them. There's a better way. So God can turn it. Tell them, Jesus. It might be in the school. It might be on the street. I got to walk. I got to walk them. So God can turn. One more time. Jesus. I'm gonna tell them. I'm gonna tell them. Of the things coming up in. So God can turn their night. Somebody living in darkness right now. Turn their night. Somebody living in darkness right now. Turn their night. Somebody needs the love of Jesus right now. Turn their night. Somebody needs encouragement. Somebody needs encouragement right now. Waiting on you, they're waiting on me, they're waiting on me. Turn their night. Oh, na 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 na. Turn their night. I hope you will tell somebody. Turn their night.
Praise the Lord.
Please go on mute if you're not. Please go on mute. Mr. Kayode.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Thank you all for joining this evening. Thank you, Sister Joke, for that short music. I don't know if we've all been aware of what's rocking the internet right now. The latest music of what's his name now? This our rapping, the new what's his name? This rapper, US rapper, gospel rapper.
It's not okay.
Sorry?
That's not the one. No, which one is that? It's not the one they're playing just now? No.
No. The New Nation that's just come up with a new rap and said that the lion and the lamb will bow down before the goat. That is rocking the Kirk Franklin.
Oh, right.
Kirk Franklin. It is rocking the internet, and people are asking Kirk Franklin, you are a believer? And your music, your rap, you say the lion and the lamb will bow before the goat? Impossible. So we just know where we are. And yeah, the gospel has to move. Today, my family went out to evangelize, and I was so pleased that I could go out to tell them about Jesus, and it was a family affair. I was really delighted. Praise God. Let's start with a word of prayer. Father, we thank you this evening for the opportunity to come before your presence. Thank you for the opportunity to listen to an issue that's of importance to us, something that's of a wise thing to do. Lord, we just pray that you will give us understanding, like the men of Issachar who understood the times and knew what Israel to do, that we will understand the relevance of this issue to our lives so that we will take the right actions and take the actions in time. Thank you for all those who've forgotten or who are about to log in. Lord, cause them all to join up, that this meeting might be a blessing to everyone you have destined it to bless. In Jesus' name we pray.
Amen. Amen.
Ewere is my name, and we want to again say welcome to today's meeting. I know people have joined in from all around, within the UK, Nigeria, wherever you are joining from. This is a program of NACF UK. NACF is NIFES Associates Community Fellowship. NIFES is a Nigeria Fellowship of Evangelical Students. So it is the gathering of people who at some point in their lives were part of the campus movement, NIFES, the Nigeria Fellowship of Evangelical Students, which is the largest student Christian movement in the world today. It's not just those who are graduates, but those who associate with us with the fellowship. So you didn't have the opportunity of being a member of NIFES. You see what we're doing and you say, oh, this is the kind of thing I want to be a part of. You're welcome. So some people, their spouses didn't pass through NIFES, but they are part of us. They're also part of the NIFES Associates Community Fellowship. People, alumni coming together on this journey to heaven, if you like, to ensure that we do things in line with God's way and strengthen each other in this Christian journey. That's who we are. So the UK branch of it is NACF UK, NIFES Associates Community Fellowship. We do these programs every other month, and once a year we do a conference where we come together to strengthen one another. It usually holds the last bank holiday in May. So there are 2 bank holidays in May. The second one, we usually have our conference. If it's something you're interested in, you want to be a part of this body, you are very much welcome. Reach out to any one of us, and we will get you involved in what we are doing. Today, we are going to be looking at wills. And this meeting will be about 2 hours. We don't expect it will not exceed 9:30. So it could end before then, depending on how many questions we have, but be sure at latest will be 9:30 today, 2 hours. You have the opportunity to ask questions. If you have any question you want to ask, please on your Zoom screen where it says more, the double 3 dots there, just click on it and select chat or use Alt-H and type in your question there. And some of us will be monitoring, and the speaker too. If he doesn't see it, at the end of it, someone will coordinate the question and answer session. Feel free to ask any question, and we hope that God will help us with the speaker to bring the answers. I would like to invite Sister Joke to introduce our speaker today. Sister Joke is our coordinator. Thank you.
This meeting is being recorded.
Right. Getting my technology to work. Again, thank you everyone for coming, and thank you, Pastor Niyi, for always answering our every call. It's such a privilege, it's such an honor. Pastor Niyi are fondly calling. Coincidentally, I don't want to say maybe we are enemies or we are friends, because I'm you know. So, but we've become best of friends in Christ. Hallelujah. So, Pastor Niyi, like I said, is a pastor and is also a businessman. He's just written a book. I don't know if anybody can see my background is not doing justice to this. Anyway, I'm sure you talk to us about the book later on this seminar. So he is Pastor Niyi is a principal consultant of Kingdom Wealth Management. That is his company, and is also an associate partner of St. James Place Wealth Management. And this is one of the FTSE 100 organization here in the UK. This company has over 150 billion assets under management, and is one of their key resource on that company. And I feel like reading a lot of a biography, but I find it a little bit intimidating, Pastor Niyi. So I'm just going to hand over the floor to you and do what you know how to do best with regards to this area. Thank you so much, Pastor Niyi. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Great pleasure indeed. Thank you so much. What can I say? I think I've become a member of the entire group now, and it's always a great pleasure to come back into the house anytime we have occasions like this. And I believe that tonight again, we're going to have a wonderful time by the grace of God. And I just want to thank the executives and the coordinators and the anchors of this program for putting this together, because this is one thing that I believe is extremely important for our community in particular. And in order for us to walk through this, I'm going to be sharing some slides with us tonight. So I am trying to get my slides on. I don't know whether you can see my slide at all. Is there anything coming up on the screen now?
No, we can see your beautiful wife.
Your laptop background is showing.
But not the slides yet, right?
Not the slides.
Okay, so let's try again.
Okay.
Technology is when you need it most that it begins to mess up. What are we doing wrong now? So just bear with me.
If you position. All right, now we can see your slide.
Okay, all right. And let us actually do it from the beginning. Okay. Right. Is it quite okay now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So tonight, I mean, the job that I've got a time that I've been given is actually want to look at wills. Of course, we don't have to look at trust if you haven't got the time, but we'll go as much as we can tonight. The only thing is both of them kind of they tally together occasionally, but let's kind of focus on wills tonight. And I want to acknowledge the fact that this is one aspect of financial planning that a lot of people take for granted, and they take it for granted, and at the end of the day it turns out to be that in taking it for granted it costs a lot. I've had a lot of experiences as pertaining to this aspect of financial planning. Let me start with a very interesting story. No, is it interesting? Okay, let me start with a story, put it that way. I have a client of mine that basically has been my client for over maybe more than 10 years. And one of the things that I do annual review is to basically make sure that I check their will just to be sure that they have a will in place. So this kind of mine, and it's got substantial asset. And I mean, when someone is, it's well okay in UK. I mean, someone who has an asset that is over £1 million in UK today, you can't say that person is not doing very well. And every year, we're not going to do a review of his portfolio to check what he has in place and to just make sure we look at, if there's any new investment, new portfolio, or whatever it is I want to do. One of the questions that I normally ask is, what about your will? Have you, do you have a valid will in place? And I ask questions like, how long has your will been in place for? Does it represent where you are at the moment? Because sometimes you did a will, but that will you actually did about maybe 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 10 years ago. Maybe some people, they'll say 15 years ago. And since they put it in place, they've not reviewed that same will. Unfortunately, your financial position is going to change from time to time. Your estate will change, your assets will change. Actually, your wishes will change as well. And what it means is that if you did a will 10, 15 years ago, and now this year, I'm asking you a question about the will that you did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and you have not actually adjusted anything, whereas your estate has changed, your assets has changed, your wishes has changed, then of course, what it means is that the will you have at hand at the moment does not actually represent your true wishes. So I went in year in, year out to see this client of mine, and I kept asking about the will. And I cannot do the will for a client because will is personal, is your expression. The only thing I need to do is to let you know that by virtue of what I'm doing in terms of the work that I'm doing with you, looking up to your investment portfolio, financial portfolio, I believe that you need a will just in case anything happens. Well, one day I was just in my office and then I got a call, and the call was that the guy was in hospital, right? So I went to where he was in hospital to see him. And when I got there, I got this very challenging news. And what was the challenging news? The challenging news was that he was in church on a Sunday and he administered after ministering, stepped down. All of a sudden, he felt a bit dizzy and then he collapsed. They carried him from there, went to the hospital, and they did all the normal things they're supposed to do in terms of checking here and there. He recovered. But along the line, while they were doing the, all the investigation, medical investigation, they discovered that something was wrong. Eventually, it was cancer. And before you know it, right, not more than, I think probably 3 months, this thing just kind of turned upside down. He thought he was going to survive it because of the medical treatment and everything that they gave him. So one day he was in the hospital and then he called me and I went there and we had a conversation and he said he hasn't done the will thing, that he has to do it. And that day was the day that I knew that he wasn't going to make it. So he asked me to go and actually work on a will for him. So I went, gave me some instruction, ran to go and put the will together. Unfortunately, by the time I got back to his bedside, he was in coma. He couldn't sign the will. I couldn't do anything again. So he died eventually without a will in place. Now, why did I start with this kind of story? What happens thereafter was a bit of chaos for the family because with such an estate, huge estate in Paris, right? Without a will. What it means is that even though he had some desires, he had some wishes, some certain ways through which he would love his assets to be distributed. But unfortunately, by not doing that aspect, that little aspect, not putting a will in place, it turns out to be that his estate has to be distributed, not according to his wishes any longer. It has to be according to the law of the land because he died intestate. And I'm going to touch on that. So that's why I want us to, every one of us tonight, as we have made a time out, the time that we're supposed to be resting, getting ready for Sunday service tomorrow, we've created time that we're going to come here and listen to this. I want us to take this serious because it's a very important aspect of our financial planning. The challenge in our community is anytime you raise the issue of will, people think you are kind of, you are bringing a death wish. Maybe you want them to die. That's not the case. Will is part of financial planning. So with that, I'm going to use my slides to run through some things for us. So what exactly is a will? A will is a legal document that an individual will put in place. And why are you putting it in place? You're putting it in place so that you can express yourself in terms of what exactly are your wishes, in terms of how your estate should be administered when you are no longer here, that is after death. We all know, every one of us here, no matter how long we live, whether we're going to be here for 90 years, 100 years, whatever number of years it is, but there's one thing that is certain. So whether we like it or not, death is a certain thing, right? So the question is, when we live and we desire to leave a legacy, the scripture says that a righteous man will leave inheritance for children's children. Those things you're going to leave behind, how do you want those things to be distributed, to be administered? Who takes what, right? So the document, a legal document that carries that information for you, because it's a document that will be speaking on your behalf when you are no longer here, right? You are not here, but you are still speaking, just like you know, Abel, yet dead, but still speaking. There must be something that kind of, you know, makes your voice to still be relevant when we are no longer here. So a will is that legal document that helps to make your voice to still be alive, even when the person is no longer here. That is a legal document. And so, why do we need it? Why do you need a will in the first instance? We need it because we want to ensure that our estate ends up in the right hands, you know. And for us that are from, I mean, with our background, we know that if there is no will in place, we know many things can happen. Things can end up in the wrong hands. And you have worked, we have labored, we've done a lot of things to gather everything that we're gathering together, whether it's property, whether it's capital investment portfolio, whatever it is that constitute our estate, our pension for everything that we have labored for. We don't want it to be that at the end of the day, when we are no longer here, then those things goes to wrong hands. So why the number one reason why you need to have a will in place is that you are trying to teleguide your estate, your asset, your earn, you know, labor, things you're put together. You want to be sure that everything ends up in the right hand. And the only way, the real way, the legal way to do that is to make sure that you have a will in place. Very important. The second reason why you want to have a will in place is for the ease of grant of probate. And what it means is that in this environment, and one thing I want us to understand is this, that we need to understand the laws of the land where we live. You know, one of the reasons why I wrote the book that I wrote, Basic Understanding of UK Financial System, is because I noticed that there are a lot of people that are living in UK, but they don't actually understand the financial system. And when you live in a place, when you live in an environment and you don't understand what is going on, you don't understand the system in that environment, what happens is that you will not be able to maximize the opportunities, the potentials of whatever exists in that environment. As a matter of fact, what you will discover is, for lack of understanding of the system will lock you out, right? You will live in the system, but you will not be able to maximize the, you know, the potential and the opportunity. And ignorance as well of the system, including the law of the system, means that you might actually have to pay a great price, right, for it. So when someone is no longer here, in terms of grant of probate, is part of the process whereby people go through when they register debt, and then you have grant of probate. And grant of probate is one procedure that allows the executors of estate to be able to do what an individual wants, what he or she wants to be done with his estate. If at the process of trying to get the ease of grant of probate, there is no will in place, it creates a problem, because what it means is that automatically there is no designated executor of that person's estate. There is no executor. There's no one to look after that person's estate, because there's no will. The will is supposed to have suggested to, you know, the system that, okay, if anything happens to me, in the will, they will have put, okay, the beneficiaries of my estate and also the executors of my estate will have been there. But when the will is not there, then that's void, it's empty, totally. So now we need to be thinking of, okay, what's going to happen? So the ease of grant of probate will not be there. It's going to create a bit of problem. That's number 2 reason. Then number 3 reason is, we know that when there is no clear-cut instruction about how our estate is going to be distributed, the tendency is very extremely high that there will be rift in the family, there will be conflict in the family, there will be high what and what's this, and I mean, because your survivors will have to use their discretion. Somebody might not be happy about, you know, this one took this and that. It's big problem. Plus, even apart from your immediate family, extended families, right? They kind of tend to want to intrude into things as well. I had a case recently whereby the wife passed on, and in passing on, the family of the wife happens to kind of be in a position whereby they felt the husband is not entitled to all the things that he was getting, right? they believe that the husband is, that the wife is the one that worked and did everything, is the one that, did all this, and was the one that was paying the mortgage, that was the one that bought the property, and that is, is known to them. Now the man is gone, the woman is gone, and of course it's the man that now, receiving all the whatever it's in place in terms of life insurance payment and pension payment and so on. And the family of the wife they're not comfortable with that. And they're trying to raise a bit of issue, as in, that the man is not entitled to those things. But I think good enough, the woman was smart enough. She's put a will in place. So they cannot argue because there is a will. So now the man doesn't have to struggle. There is no fight about this. And it's very clear, so there is no debate. So it's just like we're left to the fact that if the man now thinks he wants to do something for the family, that's a different ballgame. But there wouldn't be any rift in that family as a result of what the woman left behind, because a will has actually defined the situation for them. So there would not be any legal ground for them to be able to contain whatever, except so to say. So that's number 3 reason. But the most important reason, which is number 4 as well, is to prevent what we call intestacy law, right? And intestacy law, it's what happens, it's what kicks in, when someone dies without a will, okay? So the law of the land will kick in when someone dies without a will in place. So the law of intestacy will be applied in the distribution of the deceased estate. So he's not the one that is saying this is what I want. Unfortunately, because the deceased lost that opportunity by not putting a will in place. It's a chance, right? And the moment that is gone and there is no will in place and the person is not here, the law of the land will kick in. And when that law kicks in, it's a different ball game entirely, right? So the estate will be distributed according to the law, not the wishes of the person who gathered all the things together, not according to the person's desire any longer. And that can be very challenging sometimes. Of course, it's not like every time intestacy comes in that the person will be disadvantaged, but the fact remains that the person is not the one that is saying, this is the way I want my estate to be distributed, unfortunately, because there is no will in place. So what does that law say? This is how, if someone, for whatever reason, kind of, dies and there is no will in place, okay? So if the person is married or has a civil partner, whatever they call it, right? Okay, and basically, if there is no children, okay, so the spouse of that individual becomes the sole beneficiary of the estate, right? If there is no children, okay. Now, if they're married, okay, our civil partner, and there are children, now the spouse is entitled to the first 270,000 of the deceased estate, and anything that is personal details as well. And then half of the remainder is actually meant for that individual as well to benefit from, while the children will take 50% of the remainder. So let's say, for argument's sake, okay, someone dies now and has an estate of, let's say, 770,000 is the net value of the estate, okay? So, and the person has children. So the first 270,000 will go to the surviving spouse, okay? The rest 500 will be divided into 2. That individual, that the surviving spouse has take half of the 500,000, which will be 250,000, and then the children will take 250. They will share it among themselves. And of course, that spouse continues to use that whatever until when she's no longer here, if she wants to pass the rest to the children, that's okay. Now, the question remains that even though it sounds quite great, but it could be that the person that owns the estate doesn't want his or her estate to be distributed in that way. The person may want something else, might not want to give anything to, so he might probably doesn't want to give anything to the wife. It could be a reason, I don't know, or maybe the children. It could be that he wants to distribute the thing in a different way. But because there is no will, this law it will be applied to that estate. Okay, and that's that. Then if there is no civil partner, there is no wife, the person dies, then the estate goes to the children. If no children, then of course it goes to grandchildren. And if there is no grandchildren, then the estate goes to the parents if the parents are still alive, right? And if there is no parents, then blood brothers and blood sisters. It could be that the man doesn't even want anything to go to blood brothers and there is nothing anyone can do about it. And if none or one survive, then they begin to think of remote relatives, distant relatives. For example, our brothers and our sisters, grandparents and uncles somewhere. And at the end of the day, if for any reason there is no relatives that meet the statutory requirement that the law has put in place, then that individual's estate goes to the crown. It goes to His Royal Majesty now, okay? Not our Royal Majesty any longer. And you will be surprised the volume, the volume of assets that ends up with the crown every year. Huge assets that ends up right in the treasury of the crown. Why? Because somebody failed to put a will in place. Very, very important. We need to know that. So that is a concept of intestacy. If someone doesn't have a will in place, the moment the person is no longer here, the law of intestacy applies, and that is what the concept, the principle of law of intestacy says in terms of distributions of the deceased estate. Right. So, and there's always this question in terms of assets that are owned in joint names and assets that are owned in single names. Okay, so, and I need to explain that anything that is actually joint tenancy or joint ownership, what happens is that A and B, they have a property together, they have a capital account together, whatever it is that is jointly owned. The moment one person is no longer here, the whole of interest vests in, of course, each of the tenants at the same time. And what that means that by right of survivorship, so interest of one tenant automatically pass to the other. So A and B, Mr. and Mrs., whatever, they have a property together. The property is worth £1 million or whatever is worth, but the property is actually owned on joint life basis. The moment A is no longer here, automatically the entire property, basically the ownership now is for madam or is for Mr. whichever way it is. Okay. Now the interesting thing about that is this: it could be that the other partner who passed on actually wants part of that asset, part of that property to actually be given to somebody, or to just want to share that part of it with somebody. But if there is no will or speaking about that, so to say, then there is no way anyone can do that, because automatically the ownership of that property passes to the surviving partner. But if there's a will in place that says, well, if I'm no longer here, so to say, I want so thing to happen as regards that, and that is why the aspect of tenancy in common comes in. What is tenancy in common? In other words, even though you own Mr. and Mrs., you have this property like the one that I've just said is 1 million worth, but individually, you can actually have your ownership, whereby you say, we're going to share this thing. So we're going to own this property as tenancy in common, whereby I have my 50%, you have your 50% as well. So that when if anything happens, each individual within the family, husband and wife, we actually own certain percentage individually, and that will form part of our estate debt, and we can decide what we're going to do with that. Okay. Now, there is no right or wrong way in order to actually do this. It depends on, how husband and wife, how they kind of, set up their financial goals and objectives, and the family financial goals and objectives as well, because there could be conversations and discussions. But we actually want this thing to pass to the next generation. I had a meeting earlier today of where things like that are issues that are of great consideration, because they want everything they put together, they want a situation whereby they can actually pass it to the next generation. How are you going to do that, right? So whichever way you own it, there is no right or wrong way. The most important thing is that there must be a discussion and conversation around this. So the joint tenancy is okay. In other words, if I'm not here, you take everything, that's fine. But me, I'm cool with that. Or tenancy in common, you know what? Let's split this thing in two, so that you know the percentage that you owe, and I know the percentage that I owe as well. And at that, it forms part of our estate, because our estate is going to be valued individually at debt. Anyway, it's not something that's going to be valued together. So that is very, very, very important. Okay. So who needs a will? Who's supposed to, we're talking about this will. Who exactly needs a will? So number one, anyone with asset. The moment you have deemed it fit to work, labor, and you have said, okay, I'm going to create wealth, and I'm going to, I have this wealth of investment, I have this asset, whatever type it might be, whether it's cash, properties, whatever it is. Anyone with assets needs a will in place, because what we are saying is we're not planning to die, but if death comes, what will happen to all the things you have left behind? This is one of the reasons why when we are putting investment together for people, when we are building investment portfolio, most especially pension, we ask individuals to kind of give us, to nominate beneficiaries who can actually benefit. If anything happens tomorrow, you build a pot of £500,000 worth portfolio with us, who will be the person that will benefit? Who is going to, who will take this thing if you're not here? So extremely, but anyone with assets, or must have a will in place, clearly expressing that this is the person that I want to benefit from my estate when I'm no longer here. That's number one. Number two, who needs a will? Anyone that desires that the asset within his or her estate to be distributed in a particular way. Right? You don't want it to go in a particular way. There are certain ways through which you want your estate to be distributed. You don't want to leave it to chance. You don't want to leave it to just anybody coming in, or discretion of somebody, because you're not really sure. So you need to have a will in place in order to do that, because the will is the legal document, is your mouthpiece when you're no longer here. It speaks on your behalf. It's the one that defends everything that you have put in place when you're no longer here. Okay. And the third reason who needs a will is anyone that desires that specific assets to hand in specific hands. If you want certain things to hand in certain hands, then you need to put a will in place in order to make sure that that particular asset ends in the right hand, the hands that you actually desire, you want that asset to be. Otherwise, people are just going to use their discretion. They're just going to assume that, oh, okay, it's okay to go here, to go there. Even people that are not entitled to anything can actually come in and say, well, we're going to fight over this as well. We have a right here and there. You know what I'm talking about. Most especially within our community, it's a very common thing. So if you want, if you have an asset, anything at all, or you desire that the asset within your estate be distributed in a particular way, and you want certain specific asset to hand somewhere, you must put a will in place. Otherwise, it won't happen, basically, as you desire. So when we're not talking about a will, what does a will look like? A valid will. A valid will must be written. Okay, it's a good practice. I know some people say, what about verbal will? No, a valid will that would not create problem. Number one, must be written, okay, and must be signed and must be witnessed, okay. And the dating your will as well is a good practice, even though it is not compulsory, but it's a good practice. Okay, so let's back up and look at those things. In other words, it is when something is written that you know the thing will be there forever. If it's verbal, it can be argued, it can be contended, it can be debated. But when it is written in black and white, that changes the whole equation, right? Because it's written. Okay, and you as the one that is writing the will, you need to make sure you sign it. Okay, and when you are signing the will, it becomes quite important that your signature is witnessed. There must be people that witness your signature, and anyone that's going to witness your signature has to be an adult that is above, that is 18 years and above, and they need to witness that this is your true signature, and they need to put their details as well, their contact, how to contact them, so that if anything happens, they say, oh, actually, I was there when he put the will together, and he called me to come and witness while he was signing, so that becomes a value. Now, of course, that's where the aspect of date comes in, so that when the witness is actually signing, he can actually date it as well, that I signed this document on this particular day of the month in the so year. I was the one that endorsed the content of this. Okay, so, and of course, you know that inside your will, you need to kind of document your beneficiaries, the people that you want to benefit from whatever it is, and also the executors of your estate as well. They ought to be there, right? These are the people that I know will kind of do the work. So that is quite important. And also, you know that the content of your will is I'm looking for the word now, is an inventory of your assets, everything that you have, that you want to go to, specific people, or whichever way you want it to be distributed. All these things have to be documented within that will, okay? And after it's been done, you're satisfied with it, then you sign it and you get someone to witness it, and that becomes a legal document in your hand with dates, basically. Now, having said that, I've had a lot of people asking questions in time past. Some of my meetings, they talk about individual wills versus joint will, that husband and wife, my husband, I was just going to do a will together. Now, of course, there is no law that says you can have a joint will if you choose to. But the problem is this, that with joint wills in particular, let's assume you agree how things are going to be. Now, the moment one individual is no longer here, right, and the will is read, the other person will now be left without a will, because it's joint will, it's been executed at the point of the death of A. So B is still here, but because the will has been executed, B has to now go and do another will. So that's why it's always good that, to some extent, instead of having joint wills, you can, it's more easier for you to have individual wills. And of course, with joint wills, sometimes there could be a bit of intimidation, and I'm just doing it because he wants me to do it, I'm just doing it because she wants me to do it, and so on and so forth. But if husband and wife sits down and you agree on how things are going to be, basically, it's not every home that things are done together. We need to know that there are homes whereby things are done separately, and as a result, in homes whereby things are not done together, not everything's done together, then of course, joint will is not a good option there. But individual wills, but ideally, in a nice and a very simple way, individual wills is always the best. Husband and wife can sit down together and have conversations about what's going to happen to their estate. Even if they have worked, even if they have labored together, they put it together, they can still have a conversation around it, and then they can have individual wills. And of course, maybe I mean, one of the reasons why it's individual will is quite important is I may want he as the executor of my will. My wife may not want the same person as the executor of the will. I want somebody else. Maybe doesn't trust the person that I trust. So all those things are there, and we need to kind of just take that into cognizance when we're putting a will together, whether we're going to have a single will or single individual wills, or we're going to have a joint will. Okay. Now, how do I put this will together? I've seen, we've said all the things that we've said. How do we put this together? Now, this is one of the things that kind of amazes me about a will. Majority of us on online tonight, I believe that our estate is not complicated. And what I mean by complicated is not hundreds of millions, in terms of, the volume. Our estates are quite simple. So when it comes to putting will together, number one, a lot of people tend to think that it's very expensive. Unfortunately, it is not. A will is only expensive when your estate is complicated. When your estate is not complicated, which is always the case, then will is not difficult. So there are three ways when I'm talking to my client. There are three ways through which you can put a will in place. The first one is what I call DIY, do it yourself. And what does that entail? Okay. If you go to W.H. Smith website tonight and you Google will pack or last testament or whatever, you will see different versions of legal documents that is actually a will, right? It's a template for a will. It's been put together according to the law of the land, right? And you can buy that for probably about 30, 35 pounds. I'm not sure it's up to 40 pounds that you pay for it. They used to have electronic copy of their will pack that you can just download into your system. And when you download it into your system, of course, the guidance is there. You pre-populate it, the areas where you're going to feel where everything goes into, they are there, the guidance are there, and you can just input those information into those areas because you've sat down, you have information about your estate, everything that you own, you have that information, and of course you know the people that are going to be the beneficiary, you know the people that are going to be the executors, and all you need to do is go into that section and then you input all the information. And if it's the electronic version, then you can print it, okay, and then you do those things that I've said, you get it signed, you get it witnessed, it becomes a valid legal document that represents your will. It's done. It's DIY. All this that I'm talking about, less than 50 pounds, the job is done. And probably the only thing you need to be conscious about is make sure you take time to actually sit down, you know what you want to do. And of course, you have that there. The advantage of the electronic version of the W.H. Smith will pack, for me personally, is the fact that since it's in your system electronically, 5 years, 6 years, if anything happens, you can go back into that document, you can adjust and print again and sign again, okay, and then witness again. So you can adjust on an ongoing basis. It's there, it's your document. That's what I love about the electronic version. But at the same time, they've got hard copies as well. So if you buy the hard copy, I guess what you might want to do when you have it is, because you go through it again, and then they you might need to photocopy the pages that has the place that you need to fill, if you think so. The hard copy is not, I'm not kind of, it's not a friendly one to me anyway, but it's something that can be used at least to make sure that at any point in time you have a will in place. And the hard copy, what it means is that if for any reason you do one today, and 5 years down the road, or 6 years down the road, 10 years down the road, you need to do another one. All you need is just to buy another 30 pounds, 35 pounds copy, and then do it and make sure that you document that this overrides whatever I've put in place, or there's something the legal people call codicil, something added to whatever I've put in place before, whichever way. But just make sure that at any point in time, there is a valid will in place. So that's DIY W.H. Smith way. The second way through which you can actually put a will in place is, nowadays we have many online will companies. many of them. If you Google or online will companies, tonight you'll be surprised at how many companies are there that are ready to help you in order to sort out your will. How do they do it? The moment you contact them, and I think that one is actually cheaper than WH Smith as well. You contact them, and they will send you the, all their normal whatever information, ask you to send information back to them. With that information, they will populate and prepare your will, send it back to you to have a look at it. They are satisfied with it. That's it. If you're not, they will do all the necessary amendment. And not until when you are satisfied with it, then they will send the final copy to you, which you take, you get to sign, you date, you witness, just like that process that I've mentioned. But the third way to basically look into this is using a professional solicitor, and even that, as big as that word sounds, many solicitors would do your will for you for under maybe £300, and that becomes quite important when you have certain things to deal with and you need to speak to people to get their professional opinion about certain things. And for us, many of us here, I need to emphasize this. We have estates. Some of us, we have properties here. We have in Nigeria. Maybe some of us, we bought some things in different places as well. So we have some bits and pieces all over the place, or certain things that you just want to, you want to clarify. When you have to clarify, and certain things as regards the way your estate is structured, then it's better for you that you use a professional solicitor in that instance, so that it can help you to answer certain questions, because your estate is not, it's not generic, so to say. There are some things that you want to deal with. That is very, very important. The moment you know, okay, I'm thinking of here, I'm thinking of there, I have all these things all over the place. How can I know what to do where, and what law applies to ABC? That area, you need professional solicitor to come in and help you in order to to cross the T's and to dot the I's, so that at the end of the day, you don't put a will in place that will be invalidated when you are no longer here. Extremely, extremely important. So those are the three concepts that you can actually adopt. And if for any reason any of us here, you probably don't know any solicitor that can help, you can have a conversation. Just contact me. I can point solicitors to you that can help you to have that kind of conversation, and in how to get a valid will in place. And with that, I'm going to speak briefly over this last slide, which it kind of dovetail will, and that's why I want to mention it, and that is power of attorney. Okay, and why is this very important? It's very important because I want us to pay attention to this, because a will is something that a will is a document that is it comes to play when you are no longer here. All right, when the person is no longer here. But there are occasions whereby people are still here, but for some reason, due to some situations and circumstances, else it could be anything, the person cannot actually manage their estate. Seen people, at many things, health reasons or whatever reasons, they are not capable in making decisions again. So when someone puts a will in place, which of course the will is when you're no longer here, it is also always advisable that to say, if for any reason anything happens to me and there is some incapacitation that I cannot make decisions, I can't do certain things myself, I'm going to give power of attorney to someone. Okay, so the power of attorney is a document whereby an individual who is the donor, you give another individual the power of attorney to act on your behalf, right, on whatever you want them to act as it pertains to your property, your estate, your asset, and so on and so forth. Okay, so, and of course, over the years in this environment, because of the significance of that, because the law is thinking of, okay, your will is after when you're no longer here, but what about when you are here, but you can't actually do some things? So the power of attorney is there, and then of course it's moved from just being just power of attorney to enduring power of attorney, and then of course now the lasting power of attorney, which is, you know, that can handle property and financial matters, health decisions and welfare. All those things together, there are always issues that must be considered, you know, when we are looking at this issue of will, and so on and so forth. So it's not just will that we need to pay attention to when we're about, which of course is about when we are no longer here, but even when we are here, there are issues whereby it might be that I need someone to act on my behalf when I'm still alive, I'm not dead, but meant, you know, for health or mental incapacitation or whatever it might be, I'm not able to make decisions and somebody still have to act on my behalf. You don't want to leave that to chance, because what it means is that you can be taken advantage of, right? And we've seen issues whereby husband took advantage of wife, wife took advantage of husband, many things within that area. But if there is a power of attorney, the person that you have given that power of attorney steps in immediately, and it can defend your space for you in such a way that, you know, your assets are still protected while you're still here, not something that will be depleted by someone that you wouldn't have want that to happen anyway, if not for whatever the situations that you're going through. And on that, I will keep quiet, and basically we can ask, we can go for questions and answers if there's any. Otherwise, thank you very much for listening to me tonight. I hope the presentation helps a bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Niyi, and it's been really great listening to you. I've got few questions here. I will just read them one at a time and get you to respond.
Okay.
One of these, I think you touched during your presentation, is what are the factors to consider when selecting a will executor?
Right. You need the one of the greatest thing is there are some people that you know you can trust that when you are not here, they can defend your space. Okay. There are people that you naturally feel you can confide in, you can talk to them about the privacy of your life. They are the people that you want to give, you know, that role to, that responsibility. They are the one that you want to think about who will be your executors, people that you know, they are your confidant, so to say, people you trust, and you know that genuinely they love you, they care for you, and they care about you, that they're not just there, they're not just doing things when you are there, or not eye service, but even when you're not there, they defend your space for you. That's the kind of person you want to be thinking as executor. That's number one. However, there are occasions whereby, you know, I don't want to say probably you need, you know, someone that is outside I mean, you don't want someone that doesn't know you to come in and be the executor of your will. But if that is what it is, sometimes, but anyone that you know is trustworthy, has integrity, you've watched them, even though they may not be members of the family, but you know that this person has integrity, right? That it will not mince word, it will not whatever, it will be straight. That kind of person as well is an individual that you want to be the executor of your will.
Thank you very much. And a very close question to that is, can somebody have multiple executor?
Yes, of course. Of course, you can have, it doesn't have to be one person. You can have a team of people. These are the executors of my whatever I said. You sit down together, and they will be able to decide on what they're going to do. Of course, you can have.
Okay, thank you. I think you did touch about it, talking about things that could, if will could be invalid, and if yes, what are such things that could make your will invalid?
People do contend will. So there are occasions whereby, if for any reason you put a will in place and somebody thinks, well, I think I'm entitled to something within this estate. Well, to invalidate it, they need to go to court anyway, right? They need to kind of challenge. They can challenge your will, and if they challenge it and they take it before, they take it to court, and the court actually see reasons. There must be real reason. It's not easy. It's not straightforward. There must be real, and the court that looks into, when the will is being challenged, they don't take it for granted at all. They do a good job, at least in this environment. that much you know. So there could be real reason. Maybe someone is disadvantaged, right, as a result of what you have done, maybe, and the person is related to you as well, maybe it's a financial dependent. You know, some people can put will in place and just use it to spy somebody. I'm not going to give you anything when this thing, you know. But if you look at it, legally, they probably have responsibility towards that person. So for instance, some people have some problematic children or child or whichever, and they decided not to include the person in the will. You can challenge the will and say, you know, I'm your siblings, I'm part of the family. And if it goes to court and it wins, then of course they will have to do something about that. So a will can be contended, it can be challenged. It's not common, but when there is reason for it, someone can challenge it and then court will listen to it, look at it on the basis of merit. If the person actually meritoriously deserves to be part of beneficiaries of your estate, they will do something about it.
Thank you very much. While you are talking about will, you did talk about different kind of tenancy. And the question here, I think this is relevant to this environment. And the question here is there, just give me, I just want to read the question. It said, is there any relevance of tenancy in common if one of the partners needs to be moved to government-funded care home at any point in their time?
So read that question again. So the person is planning to move to care home in
So
the future.
if one of the couple, while both of them were still alive, one of them needs to be moved into care home for whatever reason, maybe for health reason.
Yes.
What is the relevance of tenancy in common if they have a will? Yeah.
Okay. That's a very interesting question to start with. Okay. So if they have tenancy in common, what it means is that when the government, the social services wants to do assessment for the person that have to go to care home, the share of the person that he wants to move into care home will be considered in the property. It will be part of it will form part of the assessment. Do you get what I'm saying now? Right? Yeah. It will form part of the, and that can actually, it may kind of happen that by considering that share, the person may not be able to maximize the benefit that, you know, that the government would have given, because it's means tested. If it's means tested benefit that is looking for, so they will look at, oh, but you have this 250,000 because you own 50% of this property, right? So that would be something that would be considered by the social service because it's part of his or her estate. Okay, whereas if it's joint tenancy, well, they know that, you know, the house, they both have whatever, it would not be something that would have been, it won't form part of the assessment, so to say. So that's the technicality. And that's one of the reasons why it's always important that people should have that conversation, whichever way they're going to own the thing, not just for now, but actually in the future. That's what we call long-term care, you know, or little life planning. Basically, you need to have that behind our minds as well. You know, the property, most of the properties that many of us live in now, in the next 10 years, 15 years, would be huge amount of money. In probably $500,000 or over that. Some of us are living in that space at the moment, and so what it means in 10 years' time is going to be like £1 million. So when they come in and they want to check, you know, the value, or they want to do an assessment, if the person has to get a care, that person's share of that property will be taken into consideration.
Thank you. Another question here is said, does your expression of wish, if you die in the course of your duty that you sign with your company, is also seen as form of a will, or at least?
Correct. So if you have any policy with the company, whether your pension or your life insurance policy, whatever it is, and they get you to put that, that's why they want to clear themselves of that. The moment they ask you to sign that document, or to complete that document, and you put all the information in terms of the beneficiaries, nominate beneficiary or expression, who you want, that's a valid document. If anything happens, it's those people that are going to be called to come and take whatever it is that you are entitled to within the, yeah, that's it.
This is an inspirational question coming out of that. Just pardon me. Then does that then mean if you have left that company, should that entitlement of yours be included in your will? So for example, yeah.
So what happened is that I mean, it depends on what kind of benefit it is. For instance, if it's a pension, for instance, okay, and while you're putting the pension in place, there is an expression of wishes. You've nominated beneficiaries, you've completed that form. It remains in it because your pension is a trust on its own, right? The pension is embedded in a trust. So because you have put that information there, it's part of that arrangement. Anytime, anywhere, as you are, even if you leave the place, if the pension is still with that company, that expression of wishes is valid. If you take the pension pot from that place, you transfer it, that thing is still there, except you change it. If you don't change it, it remains valid as long as the pension is in place. And with life insurance policy, it's a different thing. And it's different because when you leave the company, that policy lapses, right? Yeah, because you're no longer working for them. All right. That is with life insurance provisions. But with pension because of what it is, you have money there, and with that money you have actually put some things, you've actually completed the form, and because you have completed the form, that form is valid as long that the content of that form is valid as long as that pension is in place.
Okay, thank you. Then one other question here is, what's the importance of putting a will in trust? Then along with that, how can you do this? Join a.
Why do you want to put a will in trust? You don't need a will in trust. Yeah. The thing is, a lot of people, will and trust, they speak together, right? The position of trust, right, is actually it's I mean, that you can see my slide. We didn't go into trust because I know we wanted to focus on will. But why do you want to put a will in trust in the first instance? A will is a document, it's a legal document on its own. Trust is a legal document on its own as well, right? So there's no point in putting a will in trust. But obviously, trust is used for many other things, more than just what the will can do. Will is when you are no longer here, but your trust is something that you do when you are still alive.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know whether that makes sense, right? Yeah. Will is a document that is valid, that is activated when the person is no longer here. But trust arrangement is about giving things out more often than not when you are still here on this side of eternity.
Okay. Another one here, I think this is a very personal. He said, my parent left us some assets, but no will. He said, but can I decide to let the assets remain as it is so my sibling and myself can continue to share the proceeds? But my fear is, what will happen if something happened to any of us at any time and the rest of us refuse to share our parents' assets?
So the answer to that is, you don't want the mistakes that the parents made to continue, right? You don't want that to be repeated in the next generation. Ideally, you guys need to sit down and agree, right? On this thing was left behind for us. Our parents didn't leave any will to express distribution, right? I think the best thing for us is, don't let us do what they did. Let us sit down, agree on how to distribute it so that everybody has a share, and they know their share, they know their portion as well, so that if anything happens, we can pass it to the next generation. Because when it's not there, you may not be fighting today, but you don't know what is going to happen with the next generation, and even among the existing siblings as well. So my submission to that question is that don't continue the way it is, because you have actually identified that that's a big error. There's a vacuum there, right? So the best thing to do is sit down, have a conversation around what the estate is, and basically let it be documented that this percentage belongs to somebody, this percentage belongs to somebody, okay? So that that can be part of your own will when you are writing your will. Okay, that would be my submission to that.
Thank you very much. There's somebody raising up a hand, one TT from an iPhone. If you can just unmute yourself to ask your question. Thank you.
Hello. I asked the question about the trust. I just wanted to clarify further because there was something I saw. I listened to something once when the person was talking about putting a will in trust, and it was saying about. I'm just trying to recall the information well. I think what the person was trying to say is that when you are gone, if a will is in trust, then your children won't have to pay some tax. That it protects the will. Like, say for example, like a house or something, that is there's a tax that it protects the property, let's say, so that they won't have to pay a certain. I don't know whether I'm just trying to remember, but there was something I listened to that effect. That's why
I'm suspecting I'm suspecting you're talking about will trust. Okay, maybe that's what you're talking about, basically. But to be honest, my advice is this: your will is your will. Your will is protected as a legal document, right? What happens is that people refer to it when they are setting up their if they had any if they've got a trust, if they set up some trust, they make sure that they refer to their will in their trust setting up, right? If you have put some things in trust, right? Because will is different from trust, okay? Right? It's different from trust. Trust is an arrangement whereby it gives you the opportunity to take things out of your estate completely, right? So anything you put in trust is not sitting down in your estate, right? So it doesn't form part of your estate for many other reasons, right? So anything that is in trust, okay? So if you have done that, there is a need for you when you are doing your will, that will must point to your trust, the trust that you have set up as well. And that's what they call will trust, whereby the will and the trust are speaking together. All right?
Yeah, thank you.
I don't know whether that makes sense to you, right? So anything that is in trust is for either you're gifting something away, you're taking it out of your estate, you want to give it to your children, and it's no longer in your estate. Remember, in your will, you have documented things that are in your estate, isn't it? Right? All the things you have. But the moment you begin to set up trust and you put your asset into trust, what you are saying is you are taking that thing out of your estate and it's standing on its own. Anything that is in trust is sitting outside of your estate. Your will must be speaking to that trust, and that's will trust. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. I guess that's the protection they are trying to talk about, because then what that does is, it's like even though you own it, but you don't own it. It's not yours because it's in trust.
Thank you very much for that. I'm just going to ask if there's any other person in the call that want to ask questions specifically where the question has not been typed. You can indicate by raising your digital hands, then I can ask you to speak.
I can see Mrs. Opaniro's hand.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Pastor Niyi, for that elaborate teaching. I think in line with my sister Titi's question, when something is taken from your estate and put into the trust, does that mean you have the choice of not putting that thing in your will?
It's better that you still document it in your will, but you refer to the trust, that you set up a trust.
Okay.
Are you with me? So it's better that it is there, but you said it, and that's one of the reasons why when you do your will is something that you have to review from time to time, most especially when any adjustment you make within your estate. It's not always one-off. A lot of people don't know that, because if anything changes within your financial structure that requires that you need to make some adjustment, it's better for you to make it. Otherwise, you create more problem than solution. Okay. So for example, let's say someone is put a will in place now, and then tomorrow you realize that actually I want to put some things in trust. but you have mentioned them in your will, you need to kind of do a codicil or whatever they call it now to ensure that there is something in that will that is pointing to the trust that you have put in place. Okay, so because what trust does, like I said, is trust is a intelligent way, right, of taking things out of your estate, right, so that at whatever point the person is no longer here. The reason why, I mean, in cases like that, the reason why a lot of people would do that, they want to hide things to start with. But for us, it's probably you're doing it for tax planning purposes. Because, for instance, anything that is in your estate, right, and the moment the person is no longer here, and they put the estate together, after the initial IHT threshold allowance of 325,000 that you're entitled to, anything above that, you have to pay a tax of about 40%, right? So people will say, well, I don't want to do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put some things, I'm going to take them out of my estate. I will put them aside. I put them in trust, because anything that is seen done in trust is seen as if it's not part of your estate. Okay, so that will not form part of the estate of that individual, and that's why I want to say to many of us here tonight, if you have life insurance policy that is not in trust, you need to speak to us, right? So that we make sure that the life insurance policy. If anybody has life insurance policy that is not in trust, make sure you reach out, contact me, call me. Let's review your life insurance policy to see what it is and make sure that we wrap it up in trust. Most especially if it's written on individual lives. Very, very important. So anything that is not in your estate, of course, anything that is in trust would not form part of your estate. So it reduces the IHT liability that will be in our estate. For instance, people that basically they are building property portfolio, your property portfolio will swell, by virtue of the value of the property itself, and of course, what it means is that with that swelling, you need to be thinking of, okay, there's going to be IHT liability on this estate, God forbid if anything happens. So are we sure the way we have structured this thing, we are not going to be coughing out 40% of whatever the net value of our estate is if anything happens, basically. So even though we might put all these things in our will, but the moment you put anything in trust, you need to ensure that your will is speaking to the trust. They are talking together. Does that make sense, man?
Thank you so much.
Good. Good.
Thank you very much. I have one other digital hand raised. Adewale, I will just ask you to speak.
All right. Good evening, brother. Everybody.
Yeah, good
I
evening.
have a question. My question is, sorry, I'm echoing. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. My question is there a form of protection in the land for someone who didn't write a will? He or she loves their partner, but eventually something happened to that particular person. How can the society protect the interests of the half partner that has happened, such that all his labor will not go to somebody else?
Unfortunately, there is none. Unfortunately, if anything like that happens, it's what I've mentioned about that would take precedence, the law of intestacy, right? However, having said that, it depends on how the people have actually arranged their finances. For example, anything that is owned on joint names, including accounts, properties, anything that is jointly owned automatically passes to the surviving partner, right? That there's no contention. But anything that is owned individually, then that forms part of the disease estate. So there is no particular law that protects the surviving partner, apart from what the laws of intestacy as we have read. But how the the couple, how they've structured out their finances is another thing. And the only protection is anything that is owned, you know, as joint ownership, in joint ownership. That's the only protection that that gives automatic ownership to the surviving partner. Apart from that, I don't know any other way. I hope that answered the question, right?
It's very, very, very blunt and emotional. So
honestly,
that shows that people should need to write a will.
Yeah, there's no other way. The only way is if it's owned jointly. If it's not owned jointly, then it forms, whoever owns it, it forms out of that individual's estate. Right. But anything that is
owned, if the person remarry,
yeah,
goes to the other
that's one of the problems. That's why the people, even the indigenous people, that's something that messes up their mind, because they're looking at, okay, I've done all these things and no, I'm leaving this behind. Somebody remarries and then somebody else from nowhere will just come and mess up all the things that I've labored for. That's why the aspect of will and all those things are very, very important. And they experience that every day. You know, they easily in this land, they walk away from marriage. So, and somebody have labored and then another person just come in and then begin to booga over everything that's, you know, that is not their own. It's not cool.
Thank you very much. I'm conscious of our time. We've got about 10 more minutes, but there's a question that I just want to ask, and maybe you can help us shed light on this. Okay. And this is talking about bloodline wills, where somebody has, for example, you only have daughters and you will your asset to your daughter, and you know that they're going to marry and it's going to be carried on into their marriage, and you want to ensure that, like you're saying, the spouses walked away or something happened to the marriage. How do you protect that will, that it remains within the bloodline? Is there something you can say around that?
I think they need to speak to a solicitor about it. To be honest, but of course, if there is a will, I guess, I mean, if there's a will, I guess the person that inherited, or the daughter that is inheriting from the parent, ought to be smart enough when getting married to make sure that whatever it is that they own, probably just kind of have to have a feel out of the kind of home they are. I mean, it's not difficult nowadays. We're in a generation whereby even before people get married, they plan their divorce now, prenuptial, all sort of things. So it might be a situation whereby if someone feels that kind of thing can happen to you know, the next generation, you might advise them that, you know, I'm leaving this thing for you, but don't let one crackhead come in and just mess you up. So you can introduce them to the same procedure to make sure that they have adequate provision in place in terms of who owns what, and if anything happens with divorce, you know, who is going to take what. They can sort that out.
Thank you very much. I think that's about all the questions we could ask tonight, and you've been very gracious in the way you've helped us through this. It's been a very interesting night. I want to appreciate everyone that has attended. I want to say very big thank you to Pastor Niyi for coming to shed light on this. I'm going to hand over back to Mr. Joke to give any announcement before we close. Back to you, Mr. Joke.
Okay, I think the only announcement I want to give is just to say thank you everyone for sparing the time to listen to this tonight. I am quite passionate about this because of recent experiences, which I had to share with Pastor Niyi himself. Obviously, thank God, I'm sure most of us on this call are Christians, or we believe in God in one form or shape, and we all believe in long life, but life does happen. And when life happens, are we prepared? I've seen loved ones, dear friends, who have suffered the consequence because the spouse, for some reason, didn't put the will together. And in fact, the most recent one was this man worked so hard, built houses in Lekki. He passed away, unfortunately, and the mother took over the properties. And that property, when he put it together, he had his two daughters in mind. He said, I want my daughter to go to university in the UK without taking student loan. but that did not happen. This is a true life story that happened just a few months ago. So let's be prepared, children of God. Let's not you know, when the Bible said that the children of this world are wiser than the children of the kingdom.
Right.
But God, if God has equipped an expert among us, and that person has spent the time to educate us tonight, let's be doer and not just hearer. Let's be wise. And may God give us the grace to do so in Jesus' name. Thank you very much again, Pastor Niyi, for taking the time out tonight. I know you're a busy person. Thank you for taking the time out to educate us again tonight. And to everyone, I say thank you again and have a lovely weekend. God bless you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone.